Hello and welcome to iLit Lesson D2.36. Today we will focus on final syllables, shun, shun, sequencing events, are controlled vowels, and then applying what you have learned. Oh, it's going to be a great day. Today we're going to be focusing on syllables, and in particular knowing that the final syllables shun and un actually form their own syllable. So it would be like one clap, shun, just like that. When we put words or parts together, we notice that we have something like expression or expression. We hear three syllables. Then we have mention, two syllables. Action, description, dominion, confusion. It looks like most of our words had three syllables. Only two of them had two syllables. Let's keep practicing. Let's go through and read the words together. Production, invasion, graduation, reaction, communication. If we look at those first five words, you'll notice that they all end with the T-I-O-N, the I-O-N in this instance. Anytime a word ends with a T-I-O-N, an I-O-N, or an S-I-O-N, it's almost always a noun. So we could put the in front of it. The production, the invasion, the graduation, the reaction, the communication. Those are all nouns. Let's look at this next set of words. Educate, affect, construct, confess, create. What type of words are those? Well, we could put to in front of it, to educate. If you're doing something, to do something, it's a verb. To educate. Educate is a verb. Affect is a verb. To construct, to confess, to create. Please think about that quick tip on how to tell the difference between nouns and verbs. Today we'll be focusing in on sequence of events. This photo shows a time-lapse image of a snowboarder in a sequence of moves. How can you tell which direction the snowboarder is heading? What clues you in? If you said down, perhaps in a circular motion, I think you would be right on track. Many of us know that snowboarders, or gravity, will help people go down. So the snowboarder is going down the mountain. What would sequence of events look like in your own story? Well, a narrative essay has a beginning, middle, and end. Within these parts, the events of the narrative should take place in a clear, logical order. The beginning grabs the reader's attention and makes him or her want to read on. It also introduces the setting and main characters. The middle tells the main events of the story, and the end wraps up the narrative and tells why it was meaningful to the writer. Here's a checklist to help you out with that process. You can also find this checklist on the announcements page. Beginning. Will the opening grab my reader's attention? Have I introduced the main characters? Have I introduced the setting? Remember that the setting is both the time and the place of when this is taking place or when it's happening. Middle. Have I included the main events of the story? Are the events in a logical order? Have I included transitions to make it easier for the reader to follow from one event to the next? For the ending. Have I wrapped up the narrative in a satisfying way? Does my ending help my readers understand why the events in the narrative were meaningful to me? Oh, I'm so excited to hear what your stories are about. Okay, read what your stories are about. Let's examine In the Shadows by Gloria Skalinsky. In the Shadows is an excerpt from the short story Nethergrave. Jeremy, the protagonist, is all alone. He doesn't fit in at school or at home. Beacon Heights Academy lets boys excel. What a dumb motto. Did it ever occur to the school administrators when they collected the $1,000 a month tuition fee per student that maybe a boy didn't want to excel? Jeremy wished the motto was Beacon Heights Academy lets boys alone. Each term, every student in the academy had to participate in at least one after-school activity: drama, debate, the science fair, or a sport. Even if the student didn't board at the expensive, exclusive boys' school, but lived in town and went home every day after classes, like Jeremy. Jeremy had chosen soccer, not because he liked it, not because he was any good at it, but because the coach was so determined to field a winning team that Jeremy knew he'd never get played, never in a real game, and rarely even in practice. Until today. It was the last week of the spring term, which meant that to fulfill the school's requirement, Jeremy would have to play for at least 1 minute. And this would be a real game. The Beacon Heights Bulldogs against a tough team from across the valley, the Midvale Marauders. All day long, Jeremy had been wondering if he could fake stomach cramps or appendicitis, but the coach would never believe him. Jeremy might be a scared, skinny 8th grade wimp, but he was a healthy one. Okay, so that's the beginning of our story. We've kind of got the setting there. We know that the setting is taking place in Beacon Heights. And we know that our main character is in 8th grade. So that's kind of giving us a general time and a place. The main character is Jeremy. And we're going to pause there because we're just focusing in on the beginning today. Let's do a quick knowledge check. Which of these sentences is from the beginning of a narrative? I'm glad I didn't pass up the chance to swim with the dolphins. Then the guide showed us how to put on our snorkels and flippers. The feel of the dolphin skin was cool and incredibly smooth. On a hot Florida day, my mom drove us to the Dolphin Marine Park. If you said D, you would be correct. Well done. Let's continue with the rest of the story. It didn't matter that he had deliberately forgotten to bring his jersey and his shin guards to school. Dig some out of the box, Coach barked. From the bottom of the smelly equipment box, Jeremy pulled ratty shin guards and a sagging, much too large red jersey. When he ran out of the field house, a couple of his fellow 8th graders elbowed each other and snickered. Maybe because of what Jeremy was wearing, but more than likely because of the way they usually reacted to him. He sat on the bench so long his bony rump started to hurt. As the score seesawed, first the Beacon Heights Bulldogs were ahead, and then the Midvale Marauders, Jeremy kept praying that the coach had forgotten about him. Not a chance. Coach was checking the list of boys from Beacon Heights, frowning at it, crossing off names with a pencil. Jeremy, you, Coach barked. Get out there, replace the forward. Shoulders hunched, Jeremy ran onto the field. Inside his head, he was great at sports and games. On a computer, he was unbeatable. He understood the geometry of basketball, baseball, football, and soccer, and he knew all the rules because he had memorized things so easily. If only he'd had a reasonable amount of coordination, plus a little bit of muscle, he might have played soccer passably. But when Jeremy ran, his head and neck, arms and hands, legs and feet looked like a bunch of paper clips had been shaken up in a bag. Hooked together haphazardly, they stuck out at all kinds of weird angles. The coach blew his whistle. Jeremy stumbled forward, trying to get into the open so one of his teammates could pass him the ball. As if they would. All of them knew that a pass to Jeremy would mean losing the ball to the Midvale Marauders. Yet there it was, the soccer ball, and it looked like it was coming right at him. He got a foot on it, lost it, and in the mayhem, the other boy's arms and legs noticed the ball rolling around. Running after it, he started dribbling towards the goal. unbelievable. He was moving the soccer ball down the field, and it appeared he might even kick a goal, his first in his whole 2 years at Beacon Heights. Concentrating, pumping with adrenaline, he didn't notice that his teammates weren't anywhere near him. No one was helping him. He had no protection, no chance to pass, but it didn't matter because Jeremy was going to do it, make a goal. He pulled his eyes off the ball for just a second, barely the time to notice that the goalie was a Beacon Heights bulldog. Frantically, the goalie was waving his arms and shook his head, but not in time to stop Jeremy's foot, which had already begun its trajectory to kick the ball into the net. A perfect kick. Jeremy scored for the Midvale Marauders. He'd kicked a goal at the wrong end of the field, scored a point for the opposing team. Coach looked ready to burst a blood vessel as he screamed at Jeremy to get off the field. The Marauders looked ready to bust a gut, punching one another in hilarity while they laughed themselves stupid. The Bulldogs, well, Jeremy knew what would be coming later from his teammates. He was used to it. At school, he was constantly getting tripped in the halls, in the aisles, or the gym floor, in the locker room. The other guys had raised tripping Jeremy to an art form. He figured that today, since he'd blown the game, he'd be in for a world-class tripping. He was right. In the locker room, 3 of his teammates choreographed it perfectly. As one tripped him, another bumped Jeremy's left shoulder from behind, while a third boy in front of him shoved Jeremy's right shoulder, whipping him around so he pitched face down onto a bench. "Jeremy, grab a towel and hold it under your nose," the coach bellowed in disgust. "You're getting blood all over the floor." The bleeding stopped, but the swelling didn't. Afterward, walking home, Jeremy hung inside the late afternoon shadows so no one would notice him. He hoped his mother wouldn't get home until the swelling had gone down at least a bit. If she saw it, she'd just sigh and shake her head in that pitying way, wondering how she'd ever produced such an incompetent son. But his mother rarely got home before 8 or 9 at night. Usually she had dinner with a client. Jeremy didn't have to worry about his father seeing his swollen nose, since his father never saw him at all. Once in a while, Jeremy would find his father's picture in Forbes magazine or in the business section of U.S. News and World Report, which listed him as one of the computer industry's rich, triumphant successes. He owned a corporation that designed printed circuit boards. With Bill Gates and Steve Wozniacki and Steve Jobs, Jeremy's father had been in the right place at the right time when the computer revolution took off. Not since his parents' divorce 12 years ago had Jeremy and his father come face to face. Like clockwork, though, every year on Jeremy's birthday, a van would back up to the front door of his house. 2 techno brains would carry in a brand new computer with the most powerful chip produced that particular year, with the greatest amount of memory, the fastest modem, and the biggest monitor or screen. They'd install the new computer and transfer all of Jeremy's previous programs onto its hard drive, then pick up last year's computer to haul it away. Did his father actually order the world's best PC each year for Jeremy's birthday? Did he speak the words, "I want a top-of-the-line personal computer system delivered to my son"? Or was it just a digital instruction programmed to come up with automatically on the screens of the 2 techno brains? It didn't matter. Equipment like that would have made Jeremy the envy of all of his friends, if he had any. Let's go through and review. At first, Jeremy sits on the bench. Then the coach puts him in as a forward. On the field, Jeremy gets the ball. Next, he runs for the goal. Then he scores for the other team. In the locker room, he is tripped by 3 teammates. After that, he has a bloody nose. On his way home, he thinks about how he can avoid his mom. Great work today. Let's review by doing some iLit assignments. The final syllables and also phonics are controlled vowels. Remember to do your reading. This counts for language arts too. Thanks for a great day.